What is going on, YouTube people? Neo Cards and Comics here. We have a record-breaking month. The slab tsunami continues to make landfall across the hobby. Gemrate data is in from the month of August. A little late getting to this with the holiday weekend, but things did not slow down at all. If you remember a month or two ago, we did a video. I had a fancy thumbnail that said slow down or something on a street sign because grading had kind of dropped off that month a little bit. You know, we'd speculated, maybe things had finally hit a wall or whatnot. And then they got back to relative normal the following month. And then this month, all-time record. This barely beats out March 2023, which was the prior record. And you see all sorts of massive numbers, increases, all sorts of craziness. We'll run through these here and break them down. PSA, I believe, just missed a record-breaking month. Absolutely wild numbers. 1.23 million. And that record-breaking month is the overall number of cards graded across all four grading companies. A couple things to note on here. CGC numbers. Their pop report is finally 100% back to normal. So you may see a little bit of a bigger increase there just based off that pop report getting corrected. But their numbers are way up in general. Also to note, those numbers do not include reholders. So if people sent stuff in for the 9, 5 to 10 crossover or the reholder, that is not factored into these numbers because the pop report does not change when those reholders come over. So you can see year over year, they are down, but year over year, everybody else is way, way up. Some of the speculation on the PSA side of things, we'll talk about that when we dive into the sports versus TCG numbers, is they are picking up a decent chunk of business from the new PSA Japan offices that are opened up. Now, there's really no way to tell how much of that stuff is going on there from Japan. You can deep dive the pop counts on TCG, I guess, and see how many, Japanese specific TCG sets are going on there. But generally speaking, we're seeing a pretty big increase in TCG. SGC, Monster Month. They had the Topps Chrome special going on, the $9 Topps Chrome special. Beckett had a nice rebound month as well. My speculation here is that a lot of this has to do with the National. And also good pricing leading into the National. Remember, PSA, they actually have a backlog right now checking value orders in. I did the video last week on the PSA pricing special for September and asked for feedback from viewers, and most people were saying anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks to get a value order checked in currently. So they have plenty of cards sitting there. So it's not like the graders are sitting around waiting on work. The cards are sitting there, just the processing team has to get through them and get them into the graders' hands. I believe other stuff is moving through the pipeline fairly quickly. So you have that compounded with all these companies went to Chicago at the end of August. And what happens there? One, they grade a bunch of cards. And that show, remember, that show leans into August. So some of that stuff would hit the pop report then. The other thing that happens, though, is there's a lot of take-home submissions. A lot of people drop cards off at the National to be graded. Now, I don't know if all those were value or not, but you have to imagine that all the grading companies, this isn't PSA specific, all the grading companies got a lot of cards dropped off for take-home grading. I know the ones that I spoke to all were very pleased with the amount of business that they did at the National. That includes on-site grading and take-home business. So anyone that thinks grading is slowing down anytime soon, it sure doesn't look like it. That being said, I would not be surprised if we have a little bit of a dip in September coming off the National overload of cards getting dropped off. Like, that's speculation on my point. I don't know that for sure, but I think that it kind of checks out with the big increase that we saw this month. Let's look at some of the individual numbers. Sports cards, PSA 672,000. 35% increase month over month, 14% year over year. SGC firmly in second place in sports, up 27%. Beckett, distant third at 37,000. And then CGC with their sports cards down at the bottom at 13,000. Notice that's a pretty big drop off in the year-over-year numbers on the sports card side. So the sports card side does still continue to struggle with CGC. I know I'm actually, I have some Tops Now cards coming that I think I'm going to try that experiment with them again and send them that way and see how that goes. Worked out well for me with the national stuff. For what I could for the cost of grading there and how quickly I'll get it back, I think it's worth a shot. So I might send some of that stuff their way just to see how it does on that. But just absolutely massive numbers across the board. Especially that PSA number of 672,000 is just absolutely ridiculous. On the TCG side of things, 560,000 for PSA. The crazy part there is look at the year over year, an 84% increase in TCG from last year at this time is absolutely wild. CGC, huge jump this month. In the TCG section, and only down slightly year over year. So CGC continues to do pretty well in the TCG space, even with the label switch up and all that stuff. Their stuff's still going strong. I don't know if the label change and new grading scale contributed to that large increase month over month, because this is kind of really the first full month that they've had that up and running, or if it just had to do with something else. Or, once again, we don't really know. We're just kind of guessing at these numbers. And making some assumptions on why things spiked the way that they did. Beckett, up 28% in TCG, 236% since last year. And then SGC is up 43% from year over year, down slightly month over month. But the trend continues across all the companies other than CGC, and even theirs is kind of flat. The amount of TCG cards being graded today compared to a year ago is just absolutely wild. I don't know if that's just because of Pokemon's been popular forever, so I don't know if it's other stuff that's causing that or what the deal is. Now, all these companies are probably going to get hit with a bunch of Lorcana stuff. I'm sure that a lot of that's going to get graded now that that's out. And these TCG numbers are just absolutely crazy. I don't think any of us that kind of keep an eye on this pop report stuff expected. We all knew TCG was big, but I don't know that I appreciated how massive it really was from a grading perspective. I knew a lot of people were involved. We'll use Pokemon as an example. A ton of people collect and play Pokemon. I just never realized how big grading was on that side of things, which is, it's kind of weird to me because most TCGs grade really well. So it's kind of if most stuff's coming out of the pack, a PSA 10 or PSA 9, what are we really doing here? Maybe I'm wrong on that assumption. Someone can correct me in the comments down below, but TCG numbers, absolutely massive. There's the items by month, and then you can see the individual breakdown. Once again, you could kind of check this all out over on Gemrate's Instagram or the webpage itself. It is kind of interesting looking at the percentage that each grading company gets in the various sports. Beckett is the most balanced. 10.9, 10.7, 9.5 out of the three majors, baseball, football, basketball. SGC, very baseball heavy. Now, I am sure a lot of that has to do with the special that they were running with Topps Chrome. And then in second place, they have football, and then in a distant third, they have basketball. PSA, basketball's third, which is actually a little bit surprising. Football is neck and neck with basketball, but has a clear second place, and then baseball is also first as well. Now, I'm sure part of this has to do with time of year. So these numbers are always going to kind of shift a little bit depending on what's going on in the real world. They'll lag behind a little bit because whatever came out a month or two ago is what everyone's grading, and what's hitting the pop report a month or two later. But it's just kind of interesting how each company kind of has their own niche. Beckett doesn't. Theirs is kind of evenly distributed. SGC's is clearly baseball. PSA's is clearly baseball right now, with football in second in both, and then NBA in third in both. Also kind of has to do with the popularity of the individual products. Like I said, there's not really a lot of basketball stuff hitting the shelves right now, so I expect those numbers to pick up. We're about to get, we're about to get a bunch of football releases, potentially, who knows. So those numbers could juice back up, and I would assume baseball will slow down a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if SGC has some different specials lined up once this Topps Chrome thing runs out. Let's just kind of do a quick state of where each company is kind of at right now. PSA, they just rolled out the football special. Value orders are backed up right now, so you're looking at some time to get orders even checked in the door if you're sending in for specials or value stuff. You're basically looking at around $16 to $20 per card on lower end stuff, depending on what you're looking at. Everything that I've heard is that orders do move through the system quickly once they are checked in. So that part, there isn't necessarily a backlog, but on the front end, there does seem to be. SGC Post National had a little bit of a backlog, and that's like a stretch to kind of even say those words. Peter did do a little bit of an IG Live to kind of say they were running like, I think it was like 4 or 6 days behind or something. I believe they are back on track now from that. I feel like we're due for a pricing shakeup with SGC, but we kind of always talk about this. People always want them to go cheaper. They kind of sit around that 100 to 125,000 cards a month number. And you have to wonder if maybe they're just content with that. And if, that amount of cards keeps coming in and they keep processing them and keeping their, 1 week turnaround time basically on stuff, they're probably very content just to keep doing what they're doing. They might not have the capacity to go super crazy. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know. I feel like they've been kind of testing things. They ran that football special as well a couple months ago. They do these $9 things. So they kind of know, like, if we pull on this lever, we can expect this number of cards to roll through the door to a general degree. So I'm guessing they just kind of feel okay in the spot that they are currently at. It's Peter who knows, maybe he could drop an Instagram bomb on us at any point in time. But I feel like they're just kind of content where they are. CGC on the TCG side of things, say that 5 times fast, are actually doing quite well, keeping their numbers up. The sports card side is definitely struggling. We'll see what they can do to kind of kick that in gear. Like I said, I had good success with them in regards to that Tops Now stuff. I'm going to run that experiment, I think, again with some other stuff that I have coming from Tops Now, just to kind of see how that goes. They are still, personally, for me, they're still my go-to for anything PC related. I absolutely adore that slab. I think cards look the best in that slab, and it's really not even close. So for anything that I am not planning on flipping, that I want slabbed up, especially Marvel stuff, even though the slab changed and it's not a blue label anymore, I still do like the way a lot of Marvel inserts look in their holders just because of the clarity. Beckett, sitting down there in 4th spot. Boy, oh boy, Beckett. They definitely seem to be slowing down on orders. I kind of peruse the blowout page for grading where people kind of post their turnaround times and stuff like that. If anyone has anything to say about Beckett in regards to how quickly or how slowly you got orders back, drop it in the comments down below. They're kind of the enigma where things kind of go in and they just, sometimes they come out at a decent time and sometimes they sit there forever. You just don't really know. I still think it's a massive mistake by them not to come out and actually say what the hell they're doing with the grading scale change. I am fairly confident they're not making any change, but I think it would behoove them to come out and actually say that. I really don't understand why they're not. Stick someone in front of a camera, record a 60-second Instagram reel. Hey, we took feedback, yada, yada, yada. We have decided at this time to stay with the current grading scale change. People seem to be happy with it. We went down the path. It didn't work, yada, yada, whatever you want to say, whatever PR speak you want to throw out there. But the fact that they still have not done that yet just leaves like this air of uncertainty out there. And once again, I assume they're getting enough cards to keep themselves content because they still really continue to just do nothing. They still really need a ton of back-end improvements, in my opinion, to really get things streamlined. Their submission process is better, but it's still not fantastic. I know Flipping Steve just had an issue getting an order back from Beckett. And then once again, their customer service has gotten better, but it still feels like it needs a little love. And turnaround times. That part seems like still a big struggle for them, which is concerning because it's not like cards are flying to them. They're 4th on this list by a pretty decent pace, and they're struggling to keep up. That just scares me a little bit in regards to them. Their pricing is fine, but the use case for them becomes less and less by the week, I feel like, for me personally anyway. I haven't sent a card to Beckett in a really, really long time. I potentially was going to grade some stuff with them at the National, but ended up not doing it. So I don't know. We will see how this all shakes out. It'll be interesting now that we are getting full CGC numbers again, since their pop reports are all fixed with all their mergers and stuff. Kind of how they really do stack up now that we're seeing the full picture. Again, we really haven't been seeing the full picture for CGC for a while. So the grading machine continues to march on and continues to want fed cards. As much as people want to say, you know, the hobby's slowing down, the market's dying, this, that, whatever. On the grading side of things are going strong. It will be interesting to see if we ever see these numbers tail off in a major way, what happens. But for right now, all four are able to sit at the table and eat, and that's where we are. That's all I got for you, boys and girls. Catch you on the next one. Peace.